Greetings, brothers. Welcome to our weekly tactics video. Today we're going to talk about the deadliest infantry you can put in a Land Raider. Blood Angels just got a buff. Sons of Sanguinius is now much better than it was. We think we're testing it out. And today we're going to run a bunch of numbers about the different units you can put in a Land Raider to find out which one is going to do the most damage in melee. And I've got a couple of surprises that you definitely didn't think would be in here. So let's dive in. So thank you so much for being here, and if you're new to the channel, my name is John, and every week we're going to talk about how to be a better Blood Angels player, or what you can do to get the most out of your Blood Angels. Let's talk about the new detachment rule. It's now add 2 to the strength characteristic and 1 to the attack characteristic of a melee unit, basically when they make a charge roll. So anytime you charge, you're +2 strength. Big changes for stuff like chainswords, moving from strength 4 to 6. Big changes potentially for like Thunderhammers, moving from strength 8 to 10. So we've got 5 different unit profiles to look at. Assault Intercessors, they are going to take their chainswords from strength 4 to 6. Big change. They're also going to get 5 attacks on the charge because of that +1. Assault Intercessors have the cool rule where you reroll 1s all the time. If you're on an objective, you reroll all your wounds. That's quite nice because it stacks with Oath of Moment, and not many units have some sort of wound reroll like period in Blood Angels. You don't get that very often. So this is actually quite big, and it's going to come up a couple of times in the video. So remember, Shock Assault. I put Death Company Intercessors in there because people always ask, are these guys competitive? Well, let's find out. They get full rerolls to hit. Basically, because they're a Death Company, they're still going to get those 5 attacks. They're still going to get Strength 6 chainswords. They might be competitive. We've run the numbers anyway. We're going to talk about Blade Guard. Blade Guard are a big favourite of the Primaris range. They're going to get 5 attacks per model. You can only have them a squad of 6, but it's still 30 attacks. These guys are going to be strength 7 now, -2 damage. So pretty good. Wounding toughness 3 on 2s, toughness 4 on 3s, and potentially, I suppose, even toughness 6 on 3s. So if you were fighting something like Blightlord Terminators, if you paid your stratagem to get Red Rampage and you get +1 to wounds, then you would wound Terminators on 2s. Bear in mind, these guys have some sort of innate ability to reroll 1s for hitting as well, which improves their damage output as well. So we've got the Terminator squad. I've put them in. Thunderhammers is one option, Lightning Claws is one option. I've actually run the maths on both of these, so we're going to see if either of those 2 options are competitive. I've put in Centurions as well because we do love Centurions. Blood Angels Centurions get 4 attacks each. They are 12 strength with Twin Link now. So 4 attacks, Twin Link, strength 12. So if you give these guys +1 to wound and lethal hits, I guess, from Red Rampage, then these guys are going to go to town. 50 points a model. 3 Centurions is 150. So, and you can only fit 3 in a Land Raider. So if you are going to do a Land Raider, you can only fit 3 because that takes up the space of 9. But their ability of sustain 2 against monsters, vehicles, and fortifications is very, very strong. In 12 dice, you average 2 6s. So imagine if you roll 12 dice, statistically, you should miss 4 times, but statistically, you should roll 2 6s. So your 12 attacks should become 12 rolls to wound. Those wound rolls were strength 12, twin linked, potentially +1 to wound as well. So very, very, very strong. Probably wounding on 2s re-rolling or wounding on 3s re-rolling. Very few models above T12 in the game for you to deal with, and even then the Centurions are probably going to do quite a bit of damage to them. They're the only unit that's got that flat 3 damage as well, which is tasty in of itself. Right, so started brainstorming out some squads here because obviously we're going to need squads to fit in Land Raiders. So the first squad would be like 10 Assault Intercessors. That's 50 attacks at strength 6, -1 damage. 50 attacks, isn't that nice? That's a nice number. The Sanguinary Priest could buff their AP to 2, so they become strength 6 -2 AP 1 damage. Or Mephiston could join them to give them fight first. On a 2-up, he does reduce your enemy's weapon skill. On a 6-up, he reduces your enemy's weapon skill's attacks. Bear in mind, he has the fight first rule. Blade Guard, you're getting the 30 attacks if you take 6 of these guys. Strength 7 -2 damage, 180 points. I suppose if you just look at it this way, the maximum damage these guys could do is 50. The maximum these guys do could be 60. So maybe on paper, the Blade Guard initially look a little bit better. You could have a chaplain for 60 points. That would save you any stratagems. You could just have +1 to wound with them all the time. That would be very nice on strength 7. Very good against killing elites. Maybe not vehicles, but elites. Basically anything T7 and below, arguably T6 and below with the chaplain, are going to be very, very wounding very effectively. And if you fight first, bear in mind you're making that charge out of Land Raider. Probably you can reroll 1s to hit as well, so you get a little bit more damage. You also have the Justiciar who can join with these guys, and that will give them fight first. That's very useful if you don't think you're going to be able to make the long charge, or you're not going to be able to make a charge and you just want to sit on an objective, hold it. Justiciar letting you fight first. He also has a pretty nice weapon as well. Okay, Death Company Intercessors. We can take, again, 50 attacks here. These guys are 20 points more than the Assault Intercessors. The difference is these guys reroll hits and they have a 6-up Feel No Pain. Whether or not that actually works out better, we'll come back to, but 20 points more you pay for that. Yes, you do get like a free Overwatch, or yes, you do get a free Heroic Intervention. I think that's very niche. I don't think that's going to come up all that much and score that many points. The only thing that I'll attach to these guys is a Chaplain, but the Chaplain will give them +1 to wound. So basically they'll have reroll hits and +1 to wound all the time. You won't have to spend any stratagems on them. That in of itself is not bad. So, Terminators with Lightning Claws, you get 30 attacks from Lightning Claws. They are strength 7 now, -2/1 damage. It costs 195 points. Very costly, the Terminators. Or you can get 20 Thunderhammer hits at strength 8, -2 damage dev wounds. The problem with the Terminators is that these strength 8 hits actually hit a weapon skill 4. So that's just, for some reason, Terminators still take a -1 to hit, I guess, when they're using Thunderhammers. Which actually really hurts them. So statistically, you only get 10 hits. So 10 hits, I don't think you will get enough hits. You're not going to get enough wound rolls to make the devastating wounds devastating, so to speak. And you can attach a Chaplain, that's a Chaplain and a Chaplain, you can attach a Captain, which is neither a Chaplain or a Captain. He is a Captain, and he'll give you a free reroll charge, which in of itself, coming out of a Land Raider, could be very good. Land Raider moves 12, you disembark 3, and then you can charge. So, assuming that you've got 15 inches of movement, the 12 plus the disembarkation, then you maybe do like a 7-inch reroll charge. 7 inches is a good number, much more than 7. You start really lowering your chance of successfully charging. A 7 with a reroll is 81%, so 8 out of 10 times. 6 would be better, but 7 we can live with. So you're basically saying, I'm going to have a 22-inch threat range on all these Terminators and the Captain, and I'm going to not have to spend any CP to make that happen, and then I'll spend my CP on Red Rampage or something like that. That is a possibility. Again, the Captain can actually do a free stratagem with the Terminators. So there's a lot to like about this if you're trying to save command points. Whether or not it does enough damage, we're going to come to. And then obviously the Centurions coming out of Land Raiders, the only way really you can deliver them. These guys move 4 inches. They're super slow. They will kill Greater Demons in 1 turn though. I think I had 3 Centurions do like 17 damage or something ridiculous against like Be'lakor, left them on like 2 wounds or something. It was super close to killing them in 1 turn. I've seen other people say the exact same thing. 3 Centurions will kill a Greater Demon if they make the charge because of the sustained hits, because maybe you oath of moment that demon and you reroll for some 6s. It is devastating for the Centurions, and they are only 150 points, so they're not a bad shout in a Land Raider. Just, I think the problem with the Centurions is when you're not fighting monsters, vehicles, or fortresses, you don't have very much attacks, and you can't really fall back and shoot in the Blood Angels detachment, so there is a chance these guys get bogged down and they don't have any pistols, so they're not shooting in combat. So, but they are 150 points that you could throw away and you could trade up a lot of the time. So I think Centurions are not bad. I've used them a fair bit in my Blood Angels lists. So let's get into some damage numbers, right? So I started by just calculating the damage of the squads. I picked Marines. I picked Death Shroud Terminators because the Death Shroud are a cool Terminator unit in that they've got Strength 6. Yes, they move less, but that's not really important for these numbers. It was just like Strength 6 Terminators. So basically the hardest, most survivable Terminators in the game. Beasts of Nurgle are a good example as well because if you don't do 9 wounds to them, I think it's 8 actually. I think they have toughness 9 and 8 wounds. If you don't do all 8 wounds to them, they'll regenerate fully. So you have to be killing them it's each phase they regenerate back to full health. And then a Hecatonk Land Fortress, in that like a Land Fortress, if you're running a ton of melee, you're going to need something that can slam into that Land Fortress and do a bunch of damage. It has a 2-up save and it has a toughness 12, so even strength 6 are going to struggle big time into it. So here are the raw damage numbers. I actually don't think these are super relevant unless they're relevant to you, in that like you just want to use these units without any stratagems, without any characters doing any shenanigans. So like these are 50 attacks, AP 2. These are 30 attacks, strength 7. Bear in mind, I haven't actually added any of the damage from the characters to this initial slide. This is just the fact-finding slide. And I guess the Assault Centurions are this slide is kind of this is the most important numbers in this, because Assault Centurions never get attached to characters. So this is their damage if you don't buff them. And their damage if you don't buff them is great, actually. If you look at the Land Fortress, wow, 13.5 damage in a turn against a Land Fortress. That's devastating. Land Fortress only has like 16 wounds. So you can leave it on like 2 wounds from 3 Centurions. So I guess if you manage to like sneak a single las cannon, or even a couple of heavy bolters or something, manage to nick a couple of wounds off it, the Centurions will just finish it off in one turn. Centurions will waste damage against Marines. They're not bad against Terminators or Beasts. They certainly aren't bad. They keep up with these other ones. But the other ones have more ways of buffing. So let's move on and talk about, like, what if we play Red Rampage on all these units? So we pay our 1 CP. That gives us lethal hits on the charge, and it also gives us +1 to wound. So, like, the difference, look at the difference here. The Assault Intercessors only do 3 damage to Land Fortress. You pay your 1 CP, they do 10 damage. Wow, that's a buff. Obviously, a bunch of lethal hits go through. They're AP2, so they're only saving on forwards, and also you change your wound rolls from 6 to 5, which is big when you've got 50 attacks, right? Your +1 to wound maybe doesn't help so much on the Blade Guard. It certainly doesn't help so much on the Death Company Intercessors, because you know, they would have a chaplain with them anyway, so it's minor improvements for the Death Company Intercessors. It's a small improvement for the Terminators with Lightning Claws. Lightning Claws obviously already give you rerolls to wounds, so it helps a little bit. So this is numbers that we can actually start to get interested in. So Assault Intercessors do a lot of damage against Marines, a very respectable damage in that they would kill 5 Death Shroud Terminators. Blade Guard would actually statistically kill more than 5, but remember, some of the damage with Blade Guard will be wasted because they do 2 damage per swing, so basically every second one would be wasted because Death Shroud Terminators only have 2 wounds. So in some ways, just remember that when we're talking about Beasts and Nurgle having 7 wounds, then potentially the Assault Intercessors actually kill 2 Beasts and Nurgle, and the Blade Guard might struggle because some of that damage will be wasted because of the odd number of wounds. Right, so this is actually numbers we can start getting interested in, and it seems like Assault Intercessors at 230. Bear in mind, we're going to add the character's damage here in a minute. The Blade Guard at 240 are both very, very respectable. The Centurions, I wasn't too sure about them, but I think the Centurions have their own niche. Like, the Centurions will kill big, nasty, horrific shit like a Hecaton Land Fortress. In this case, if you play Red Rampage on them, they should one-shot it. The 3 Centurions statistically will do 16.3 damage to it and kill it in 1 round of combat. That's actually kind of huge. The Terminator's damage is... that's the Lightning Claw Terminators. It's not great, but I mean, Terminators are very survivable, so there's a trade-off there. The Death Company Intercessors damage is fine, but I can't really see much reason to take them over the Assault Intercessors. And for the Assault Intercessors, it's worth noting, for all these calculations, I've included the reroll 1s to wound. If you're ever fighting on an objective, it's reroll all wound rolls. So these guys essentially against, like, if they were fighting a Land Fortress on an objective, normally they're only wounding on 5s and 6s, right? Out of 50 attacks, they would get to reroll 2s, 3s, and 4s. So that would probably be like 10 extra dice they'd be rerolling. So potentially if you're fighting on objectives, Assault Intercessors are actually a good bit better. And I never included the reroll 1s to hit for the Blade Guard because you never... I mean, I could have, right? But the maths behind the reroll 1s is if you hit on a 2, you have an 83% chance to hit. If you hit on a 3, it's a 66. If you reroll 1s, you kind of split the difference. And I believe you have a 77% chance to hit. So it's somewhere in between the 2 numbers. So I guess like you'd be hitting 10% more. So you could probably imagine that your damage output would go up somewhere like 8% more. So 5 to 10% more damage output from the Blade Guard if you use the reroll 1s to hit. And probably more, actually. You could probably actually imagine the Assault Intercessors could go up like even as much as 20% more damage if you're fighting on objective and you can reroll all your wounds. The reason I didn't include that reroll ones to hit on the Blade Guard for this maths is because essentially any unit here could get reroll all hits with Oath of Moment, right? Like Oath of Moment on Centurions would be very good. Oath of Moment on 50 attacks from Assault Intercessors with a Priest would actually be hella good. So, and I mean, sometimes you might want to Oath of Moment your Blade Guard's target as well. So, and then you could use your Blade Guard's ability defensively after that. So we haven't included that. So that's just a couple of caveats. I can't include everything. These numbers took me ages to run this week. There were so many combinations. We've got so much more to talk about. But before we talk about any more, if you are getting value out of this video, please leave a like, subscribe if you want to see more content every week, and hit the bell if you want to turn your notifications on and never miss any of my future uploads. YouTube's algorithms or their analytics tell me that only like 5% of the people that watch the channel have turned on my notifications. So 95% of you don't know when I've gone live, or you don't get my weekly updates. I'd love it if a few more would do that. So do that for me. I love you guys. Thank you so much for watching this far. Right, let's talk about this Red Rampage with some characters. So I did the numbers again, right? So we need to do the 10 Assault Intercessors this time with Mephiston, so we lose the 1 point of AP. We also need to do the 10 Judiciar with the Blade Guard, so we lose the +1 to wound. And then I also did 5 Thunderhammer Chaplain Terminators, so we get +1 to wound. So I did the Terminators damage in here, and what can I tell you about the Terminators with Thunderhammers is, like, they are bad. I guess if you Oath of Moment them, because they only hit on 4s, Oath of Moment will basically give them like 25% more damage, because 4 is a 50% chance to hit, 4 with a reroll is a 75% chance to hit. So these guys will benefit massively from Oath of Moment. So I guess if you're dead set on running Terminators, probably going to want to Oath their target, because without it, they're not going to be hitting reliably enough, in my opinion. I suppose it was like last edition when Thunderhammers and Death Company, if you didn't run like some sort of rerolls to hit, Thunderhammers hitting on 4s felt pretty bad. And I guess Terminators get even less attacks, and it's only 4 attacks per Terminator. So yeah, they feel pretty bad if you're hitting on 4s. This is the last slide I'm going to include Terminators. The Lightning Claws and the Thunderhammers didn't seem to get me excited at all. But Terminators can be very competitive. We just saw them go 6-0 in a Blood Angels list. So if you're going to use Terminators, that's on you, but I think you need to play maybe around their Oath of Moment. Use that to get the most out of the Terminators. They are very survivable, and that is the thing. The Terminators kind of have the best defensive profile. Best save, best invulnerable save, and good toughness, right? So then I had to calculate all the characters, and bear in mind, some of these characters are pretty exciting now. Mephiston, 7 attacks at strength 11. The Judiciar, 6 attacks at strength 9. Terminator Captain, 6 attacks at strength 8. Technically it's a Thunderhammer, they call it like a relic weapon or some nonsense. So I worked out their damage against the different units, and then I guess a good point to include here, actually, for Mephiston's damage, I calculated the reroll 1s that he would get by being part of the squad of Assault Intercessors. So then I added together Mephiston and the Assault Intercessors. Here's your damage. This is with Red Rampage on, so this would cost you 1 CP. Here is the Sanguinary Priest plus the Assault Intercessors. So basically, very, very similar damage, slightly behind in a couple, slightly ahead against the Death Shroud Terminators. So here you've got Meph with Fight First, 260. Sanguinary Priest, 5 up, Feel No Pain, 230. Then the cheapest option is Corbolo, which we haven't talked about just yet, but I figured may as well try him. He also gives a 5 up, Feel No Pain. He actually just gives you an extra attack, so your chain swords become 6 attacks each. So your 10 guys get 60 attacks. And these include the damage from Corbolo and the Sanguinary Priest mathed in here as well. I have actually done that and worked it out. So against like Marines, Death Shroud Terminators, Beast and Nurgle, it makes sense against, because Corbolo, the AP doesn't help against like demons because they're just on their invulnerable save. So I guess if you were playing demons, or you're playing another army that just sits on invulnerable saves and doesn't have normal saves, so AP is irrelevant, then Corbolo is actually best because he gives bonus attacks. He's actually also cheapest as well, so for the first time in the longest time, Corbolo doesn't stink. And these numbers did surprise me, but this is the big surprise of the video. I should have written down here, Corbolo doesn't stink. Okay, with Corbolo not stinking, we also put the Blade Guard and the Judiciar there. I guess, like I said, you could put the Chaplain in there, you could save yourself some command points. But the Blade Guard's damage output is very respectable for the points as well. Killed a lot of Marines, actually kills a lot of Terminators. You will lose some damage, obviously, to those 3-wound models. Kills Beast and Nurgle reasonably well. And actually, 6 Blade Guard plus a Judiciar on the charge with, the lethal hits and the Lance will actually do 15.5 damage to that Hecatonk Land Fortress. So if you were able to use the reroll ones to hit, arguably you would kill it. And you could use the reroll ones, obviously, because you would be charging at a Land Raider. You would be fighting first, essentially, against the Land Fortress. So, quite a few options there. So, my thoughts, I guess, on all 4 options here actually seem really good. There's a potential 22-inch effective threat, because if you need a 7-inch charge, which is an 81%, and that should be really what we're aiming for, no more than a 7-inch. The Land Raider will move 12, you'll disembark 3, you'll get to charge. So, ideally you probably want to be doing a 6-inch charge at that point, but 7-inch is reasonably decent. Yeah, I mean, most people would take a 7-inch charge with a potential reroll, whether or not your unit gets in combat. That's not bad. Mephiston and the Judiciar obviously get fight first, so if you did fail that charge, it's not the end of those 2 units. Obviously, they're still going to get fight first. Obviously, you lose the bonus from the Sons of Sanguinius detachment, though, if you do not charge, and you also don't really get much benefit from playing Red Rampage, because obviously you don't get +1 to wound as well. So it's fairly bad. So that's the main advantage of having a chaplain, in terms of like when you fight and you didn't charge, you still get the +1 to wound from the chaplain. So the chaplain, and arguably I suppose that means that the Death Company Intercessors with a chaplain are not a horrific choice here. Corbolo is like a dark horse. His number surprised me, but I guess if you're fighting units that don't have invulnerable saves, don't have regular saves and they're just on invuns like demons, then extra attacks actually wins out against extra AP, and Corbolo is the cheapest. So he wasn't bad against the other options either, so there's arguably an idea behind taking Corbolo. I mean, Corbolo actually could even be used in the Gladius detachment, because there is a stratagem in the Gladius detachment to get both +1 to wound and +1 AP, so interesting. There could even be an argument for 2 Land Raiders here for Blood Angels, because for like 240 points with a Land Raider, I guess that would be about 500 points. They seem like they deliver a ton of damage. Land Raiders are also durable, they OC 5, they hold objectives, they keep the unit safe. I think bringing some armor in a Blood Angels list is still going to be important, because I don't think we can go full melee. I don't think our units are durable enough. I know our Sanguinary Guard are sure as hell not durable enough. So you're going to want to bring some transport. So maybe double Land Raider is actually viable for Blood Angels, and maybe that brings a bunch of like las cannons on one, and a bunch of the Flamers and the Redeemer to deliver like 2 different methods to the battlefield for you. And then obviously the 2 units that don't get a fight first, then they have a 5-up Feel No Pain, which is not to be sniffed at either. That's 20 wounds to chew through with a 5-up Feel No Pain. 5-up Feel No Pain is really good. We used to get 5-up Feel No Pains from our Standard of Sacrifice back in the day, and that was really, really good. So, some really interesting options here. On the gist of it, I feel like maybe I want to run Mephiston, because I like Meph and I think he's fun. The Sanguinary Priest with Assault Intercessors probably wins out for me, just because of the I feel like lots of attacks with -2 AP is kind of the way to go, especially if you're ever fighting like Terminators. I feel like more AP is better, but statistically the 10 extra attacks from Corbolo don't result in too much difference overall. Okay, so having played a few games with Assault Centurions, I think they're decent for Blood Angels. My god, they're slow though, and weaker units will tar pit bong them down. They're only good really when they're charging. They're only good really when they're fighting those monsters, vehicles, or fortifications, which never really comes up actually. But they punch super hard into those strong targets. So if you've got 150 points and you can fit them in somewhere, I would do it. Blade Guard and Assault Intercessors look crazy attractive based on the numbers here. They both seem very much worth a try. 10 Assault Intercessors with Mephiston or the Sanguinary Priest both look really good. I find it hard to get excited about those Terminators. They have the best defensive profile in terms of like they are T5, they do have a 2-up, 4-up save. Even without the Storm Shield, they're good because they're 3 wounds. My last week's video actually showed a Gladius list that went 6-0 LVO running 5 Terminators. I'll put a link to that video up above this one. If you haven't seen it yet, you can click on it now. So if you've got a clear purpose for them in the list, it can definitely work. It's just not really what I'm looking for right now. I think if I'm playing Sons of Sanguinius, I want to be flooding huge numbers of attacks. 50 chainsword attacks, 60 chainsword attacks, 30 blade guard plus, I don't know, what was it, like 7 or 6 at strength 9 from the Judiciar. All seem exciting options. So now you've seen all the numbers. I'd say they're pretty accurate. Some of these numbers are pretty difficult to work out. Bear in mind, I did say Assault Intercessors will do more damage if they're fighting on objectives. And I suppose the one other thing to say is all Assault Intercessor numbers are never including Oath of Moment. So actually, if you added Oath of Moment here, you could increase these. Oath of Moment actually increases you from a 66% chance to hit to an 88% chance to hit. So Oath of Moment could bump all these numbers 20%. So if you did have Assault Intercessors with a Sanguinary Priest or Meth, and you went into a land fortress, you could really be killing it in one turn. And if it's on an objective, you'd definitely be doing a ton of damage because of the full rerolls to wound. So let me know in the comments what you're most excited to field based on what I've shared with you today. I can't imagine there's anything that I didn't cover, but if there's one, leave a comment below. And if you've been having success with some of these units, then please leave a comment about that as well, so other people can read your comments and it can help influence their list. Thank you so much for getting to the end of the video. Please like and subscribe if you haven't done that already. I just want everyone to know that the charity raffle has now ended. We did over £1,000 for the charity, the children's charity here in the UK. So thank you to everybody that entered the charity raffle, and I'm already contacting the winners via email. So we'll get those prizes in the post in the next couple of days. If you'd like to support the channel, the best way you can do that is there's a Patreon link or there's a big join button underneath the YouTube video. And literally for less than the price of a cup of coffee every month, you can help me build this channel, build the Blood Angels community. And I do appreciate each and every one of my members. Have a great week, guys. I really hope you enjoyed the video. Can't wait to see all the new Blood Angels lists. And I'm telling you, next week, I think I'm going to have a Land Raider with 10 Assault Intercessors. Maybe I'll actually do a community poll and see what people want to see, the Sanguinary Priest or Mephisto. I like Mephisto, man, though. I used to always like Mephisto, and he's a fun character. So, let's think about it. Thanks so much for watching. Have a great weekend, guys. By the blood are we made strong. Peace.